Hello, my name is Nishat Noor and welcome to Millennium Headlines. This week's top headlines are: policeman detained in freeway shootings isn't top suspect. Trump embraces role as bully, bids Perry a thorny farewell. Saudi Arabia promises investigation after crane collapse kills 107 in Mecca's Grand Mosque. 9/11 terror attacks were not plotted in Afghanistan by Al-Qaeda, claims Karzai. Tiny Greek Isle of Kos is on the front line of the migrant crisis. President Obama's weekly address. A man questioned in a string of Phoenix freeway shootings is not the prime suspect, and investigators are pressing ahead with leads in a case that has left the city on edge for 2 weeks, authorities said Saturday. A 19-year-old man from Phoenix suburb who was detained Friday at a convenience store near Interstate 10 is a person of interest, but Arizona Department of Public Safety spokesman Bart Graves declined to say what led police to question him. The man has been booked into jail on an unrelated marijuana possession charge. This is an open investigation, and we are going to go where it leads us, Graves said. Many Phoenix drivers have avoided freeways since 11 confirmed shootings began August 29th, mostly along Interstate 10, a major route through the city. 8 of the cars were hit with bullets and 3 with projectiles that could have been double Bs or pellets. One girl's ear was cut by glass as a bullet shattered her window. Graves said the investigation was moving forward and authorities were not concerned about the public growing complacent now that someone has been questioned. Police were still seeking tips, with freeway message boards across the city continuing to flash a tip line number. The shooting scenarios have varied. Some involved bullets fired at random cars, others involved projectiles, and one was apparently road rage, Graves said. A growing divide has emerged in the Republican Party's unruly presidential contest as the race bid farewell to a once powerful White House contender. On one side stands billionaire businessman Donald Trump and his allies. On the other side are those who oppose him. A day after Rick Perry, Texas's longest-serving governor, ending his second Republican presidential run with a whimper, Trump marked the shakeup by embracing his role as his party's 2016 bully on Saturday. Mr. Perry, he's gone. Good luck. He was very nasty to me. Trump told Iowa voters in an interview earlier he touted his tough-talking style as a plus. It's an attitude that our country needs. We get pushed around by everybody, he told Fox News, adding, we have to push back. Perry had all but declared war on the billionaire businessman in July, calling Trump a cancer on conservation, who could destroy the Republican Party. On Saturday, Trump's campaign was soaring while Perry's White House ambitions were dead. And with the real estate mogul suffocating the rest of the packed field, it's only a matter of time before he helps push another GOP candidate out of the race. Perry was the leading voice in the anti-Trump movement, a group that has suffered in the polls as Trump's public allies largely avoid backlash from the anti-insider wave that made Trump the unlikeliest of Republican presidential frontrunners. Republican officials and donors alike are left in a state of mass confusion about Trump's remarkable staying power despite his repeated gaffes and inexperience on key issues. There is no play in the playbook for where we are right now, said John Jordan, a California winery owner and major Republican fundraiser. Donors don't know what to think. Nobody saw the Trump phenomenon coming. In still early polls, the real estate mogul and reality TV star has more support than the once top-tier trio of former Florida Governor Jeb Bush, Wisconsin Governor Scott Walker, and Florida Senator Marco Rubio combined. And second, by the way, and another political rookie, Ben Carson, a retired surgeon who reportedly refused to criticize Trump in recent days. Bush has gone the other way in recent weeks, jabbing the businessman repeatedly on the campaign trail and through social media. He was at it again Saturday while meeting with supporters in Miami. Mr. Trump says that I can't speak Spanish, Bush told the crowd in Spanish. Walker, another Trump critic who has also struggled recently, particularly in Iowa, where he was considered a frontrunner for much of the year. The Wisconsin governor canceled upcoming appearances in California and Michigan to focus instead on the critical early voting Iowa and South Carolina. Nothing changed for us aside from some scheduling, Walker spokeswoman Kristen Kowalski said, dismissing any suggestion the campaign was concerned. On the other end of the spectrum, Texas Senator Ted Cruz, perhaps Trump's biggest ally, declined to address the Trump effect on Perry's exit on Saturday. I recognize that the media enjoys seeing Republicans bicker back and forth with each other and throw rocks at each other. But I think the American people could not care less, Cruz told reporters after addressing the same gathering of social conservatives in St. Louis that Perry shocked the night before with his announcement. A Tea Party favorite, Cruz has declined to seize on Trump's positions that would normally trigger conservative ire. Trump favors tax increases on the rich, once supported abortion rights, gave money to Hillary Rodham Clinton, and said kind things about government-run health care in other countries. Kentucky Senator Rand Paul, among Trump's chief critics, wondered aloud what is happening to his party. What does it say about GOP when a 3.5-term governor with a successful record of creating jobs bows out as a reality star leads in the polls? Paul tweeted shortly after Perry's departure. Perry's allies at 3 well-funded super PACs found they couldn't share the money they've raised or coordinate their activities with his campaign. Austin Barber, a leader of the pro-Perry super PACs, said the groups have as such as $13 million in the bank. He planned to talk with lawyers to see what the law says we can do with this money. Perry's Republican rivals praised him publicly and privately and began quoting his political network. Cruz on Saturday said Perry did a remarkable job as governor and praised him for running an honorable campaign. A person close to the Cruz campaign who was not authorized to speak publicly and requested anonymity says the fellow Texans camp will be immediately reaching out to Perry's donors and supporters. If we don't jump in, other campaigns are going to try, the person said. Saudi Arabia promised an investigation on Saturday after at least 107 pilgrims were killed when a giant construction crane collapsed on the roof of the Grand Mosque in Mecca. The crane, one of 15 placed around the holiest site in Islam, appears to have been toppled by high winds. During a sudden storm, the crane snapped in half and smashed through the ceiling on the eastern side of the largest mosque in the world. The Masjid al-Haram, or Grand Mosque, was particularly busy at the time, as Muslims converge on the site ahead of the annual Hajj pilgrimage at the end of the month. Pictures and videos posted on social media showed scores of dead bodies on the mosque's marble floor and courtyard, with dazed and bloodied pilgrims being treated among the rubble. Unverifiable mobile phone footage appeared to show the moment the crane fell, with a loud crash followed by panic and shouting. Abdul Aziz Nakour, who said he works at the mosque, said he saw the crane fall after being hit by the storm. If it wasn't for the Al Tawaf bridge, the injuries and deaths would have been worse. he said, referring to a covered walkway that surrounds the Holy Kaaba and broke the crane's fall. General Sulaiman bin Abdullah al-Amro, the head of the Civil Defense Directorate, confirmed that strong winds caused the crane to collapse. David Cameron offered his thoughts and prayers to the families of those killed. The Foreign Office said it was working with the Saudi authorities as they attempt to identify the victims, whose nationalities remain unknown. Philip Hammond, the Foreign Secretary, said, "I'm shocked and saddened to hear of the accident in Mecca involving a large number of fatalities among those attending the Hajj. My thoughts are with the families of those affected." Online activities created a hashtag on Twitter urging Mecca residents to donate blood at hospitals in the area. Prince Khalid Al Faisal, the governor of Mecca, ordered an investigation into the incident. This will presumably focus on why the crane was not properly secured against high winds. However, the results of official inquiries are rarely disclosed in Saudi Arabia, which is instinctively secretive. A photograph circulated on social media showed a crane next to the mosque being struck by lightning, but it was not again possible to confirm whether the image was genuine. The 14 billion euro expansion of the Grand Mosque was being carried out by the Saudi bin Laden Group, the industrial conglomerate founded by the father of Osama bin Laden. Last year, more than 2 million people performed Hajj, while in 2012 the figure was more than 3 million. A huge hotel complex is being built around a mile south of the Grand Mosque. The hotel, with 45 stories and 10,000 bedrooms, included 5 floors for the sole use of the Saudi royal family, will be the largest in the world when it opens next year. The pilgrimage, one of the largest religious gatherings in the world, this year takes place between September 21st to 26th. The official Saudi SPA news agency said in a statement that by yesterday, almost 800,000 pilgrims had already arrived in the kingdom. The Grand Mosque is usually at its most crowded on Fridays, the Muslim day of prayer. Hamid Karzai, the former Afghan president, has called an al-Qaeda a myth and described any link between Afghanistan and the 9/11 terror attacks a Western conspiracy. His comments came on the 14th anniversary of the wave of plane hijacks which killed almost 3,000 people across America. "I have not seen them and I have not have any report about them. Any report that would indicate that al-Qaeda is operating in Afghanistan," said the former president in an interview with Al Jazeera English. Mr. Karzai left office last year after more than a decade in power. "It is for me a myth. For us, they don't exist. Al-Qaeda have reportedly claimed responsibility for the 9/11 attacks, which were mostly thought to have been planned from Afghanistan, where the extremist group had relocated from Sudan during the 1990s. Relatives of those who died are due to hold commemorations in New York, Pennsylvania, and outside Washington today. The assault of these cities, the deadliest attack on American soil in the country's modern history, prompted the U.S.-led war with Afghanistan. More than 16,000 civilians were killed in the conflict. Mr. Karzai said on Thursday that Afghanistan was as much of a victim of terrorism as was America, as were the people who were killed in the September 11 terrorist attacks. Asked whether he believed the attacks had been planned from the country he would go on to rule, he said, "That is what I have heard from our Western friends. That's what the Western media says. There's no doubt that a terrorist operation was conducted in New York and in Washington. Bin Laden's time in Afghanistan is well documented. The former al-Qaeda leader arrived there in 1996, living first in Jalalabad and then settling in Kandahar, the spiritual and administrative headquarters of the Taliban. Mr. Karzai was Washington's favorite presidential candidate and the Taliban fell in 2001, but the relationship quickly soared. By his final year in office, the former leader was set to keep a list of complex bombings across the country that he suspects were planned by Americans, although the officials also admit they have no firm evidence of a U.S. role. Relations with neighboring Pakistan are also strained, and Mr. Karzai used Thursday's interview to claim Islamic State of Iraq and the Levant fighters in Afghanistan are definitely members of Pakistani militants. It was past 10 p.m. as an angry crowd of refugees gathered outside the police station on this tiny Greek island of the Turkish coast chanting, "We want peace." 5 policemen wearing helmets stood before the crowd, one holding a canister of tear gun. Many in the crowd had been waiting for more than a week to obtain a temporary permit to remain in the country, and they were upset that there is no refugee camp or other government assistance for them. So they have to sleep on the streets if they can't afford to pay for a hotel room or to rent a tent. Some local residents who don't want them there have attacked them. The refugees don't want to be here either. They want to move on to Germany or another European country where they are welcome and cared for. Some worry about using up their life savings before they are allowed to leave Greece. Others are still grieving the loss of family members who died back home while making the perilous sea crossings. The crossing from the sea was the most dangerous part of our journey, said Mahdi Kademi, 16, an Afghan refugee who had been traveling 15 days with an older brother to escape Taliban attacks in his hometown of Farhat in western Afghanistan. We were 8 hours in the sea and the engine stopped working midway. Crosses on the front lines of Europe's worst migrant crisis since World War II. Every morning, dozens of tiny boats land on shore filled with people from the Middle East and Africa who are fleeing war or seeking a better economic life. It's a sense that's been repeated daily for weeks here and on other Mediterranean islands that have become the most popular entry points on the continent. On the night of the protest, members of Cause Solidarity, a volunteer group that aids the migrants, stood between the police and the recent arrivals to calm things down. Around midnight, the riot police pushed the refugees away from the station while some local residents threw eggs at the volunteers. Georgos Chartophilis, a skinny physics teacher who belongs to Cause Solidarity, said his group alone gives out food as many as 2,000 people. There have been times that it was only 3 of us and we had a line of 1,000 people, he said. As Chartophilis and other volunteers handed out food, a local resident who draws tourist portraits for a living yelled at them. Yes, feed them so they'll have more strength to protest at night. The hostility reflects the strains that the huge influx of migrants is creating for Greece at a time when it's grappling with economic distress and financial sacrifices demanded by European creditors as the price for new loans needed to avert bankruptcy. In 2014, 43,500 people arrived in Greece. Through mid-August this year, more than 160,000 had landed on Greek shores, nearly 2/3 of the 250,000 migrants who have crossed into Europe so far this year, according to the International Organization for Migration. Around 2,300 died trying to make the perilous journey here, the Swiss-based group said. Greece's government has said it can't provide for the thousands of migrants that arrive daily. It has pleaded with the European Union for emergency support to deal with the influx, but that aid has yet to come. In the meantime, as migrants sleep in the shadow of the medieval-era Naratsai castle, a major tourist destination here, hundreds of locals and visitors bring them water bottles, food, and toys, prove that not everyone on the island is anti-migrant. On the beach in Kos, some migrants have rented tents for a fee of $16 a night. Others sleep on the sand. A Syrian refugee, Abu Fidel, 27, happily showed his ferry ticket to the port of Pyrrhus near Athens. He received his 6-month permit to stay in Greece and will continue his journey north with his cousins and nephews. He plans to pass through the Balkans, Hungary, and Austria before reaching Germany, where the government promised this week to host 800,000 migrants. 3 months ago, Fidel's wife and his only child died when an airstrike bombed their house in Aleppo, which has been the scene of mass destruction during Syria's long civil war. For 12 days, he waited in Kos for his papers. There's nowhere to shower, nowhere to sleep, he said, and his cousin prepared to wash his clothes in the sea. On his phone, he saved videos of migrant scuffles with the police. He showed a photo of himself on the ground after a police officer struck him. He was trying to remove a small child from the fight when the officer hit him with a baton. He still has his lump on his head. As he scrolled through the pictures on his phone, he came to photos of his wife and son. He kissed the screen. We just wish that the war would stop and we could go back to our own country, he said. It's been so many years that it's been going on. In this week's address, the president announced the launch of a new college scorecard meant to help students and parents identify which schools provide the biggest bang of your buck. Designed with input from those who will use it most, the scorecard offers reliable data on factors important to prospective students, such as how much graduates earn and how much debt they when they graduate. In an economy where some higher education is still the surest ticket to the middle class, the choices that Americans make when searching for and selecting a college have never been more important. That's why the president is committed to making sure there exists reliable information that helps students find the college that best fits their needs so that they can succeed. Now the details to this week's top headlines. Policeman detained in freeway shootings isn't top suspect. Trump embraces role as bully, bids Perry a thorny farewell. Saudi Arabia promises investigation after crane collapse kills 107 in Mecca's Grand Mosque. 9/11 terror attacks were not plotted in Afghanistan by Al-Qaeda, claims Karzai. Tiny Greek Isle of Kos is on the front line of the migrant crisis. President Obama's weekly address. Thank you for watching Millennium Headlines. See you next week.